Arizona. This is Claire Van Steenwyk, or better known to some of you, Van the Radio Man. We're bringing you candidates who are running for statewide offices mostly this year, basically relaunching our old show, Van's Crossroads, to let you understand how important politics have become, much more important than they were when we were all younger. In fact, this may be one of the most important, if not the most important, election any of us have ever taken part in. I wanted you to all understand what we're trying to do. We're getting candidates to come on this show that we believe can actually make a difference in our future, and our children and our grandchildren's future. But we all have to pay attention to what's going on, and I'm going to tell you why. Here is a mailer I got from the Biden campaign. It says, "We can build back America better," right? Now this is from Joe Biden, running for president. Why in the world would that man think I'd vote for him? I've been an active Republican since I was 9 and he was 12. He's had a 65-year span since that time and accomplished absolutely nothing except for making his family rich. We have to pay attention to what we're doing. If they have money to waste like that on someone like me who would never vote for him, then they have far too much money and we have far not enough. We as Republicans, independents, let's look at the reality of it. As Americans, need to start to really pay attention to what's going on here this time. They are trying to turn our country into a socialist nation at all levels of government, not just the federal. They're trying it in the state. They've got a Green New Deal for the state as well, not just federal. They want to get this thing in one way or the other, and it's up to all of us to put a stop to it. I'm bringing to you a candidate today who's running for the Arizona Corporation Commission. His name is Jim O'Connor, and I believe what he has to say to you is vital for our future. And I want all of you to pay very close attention to his answers and look him up on the internet and find out more about Jim. We're going to bring you a short segment of what we believe you need to know, and there's plenty more out there for you to look at. So we're going to take the time now to introduce you to Jim, and we're going to have our show so you can get the questions answered that we know you need to know, that might just be enough to get you started to do your research. Once again, thanks for listening in and viewing us as well, because now we're on the internet instead of just AM radio. So we'll begin our interview now with Jim O'Connor. Today we have Jim O'Connor in studio with us, and I'm going to begin by asking Jim a question and also asking Jim just to tell you why he's running. Jim, tell the audience a little bit about yourself, and also what made you decide to run again for Arizona Corporation Commission after you ran in 18 and almost took it away. What got you back in the 2020 race?
Well, Claire, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me back on your program. It's always a challenge to be face to face with you. Never know what's going to come up, but that's keeps me on my toes for sure. As you mentioned, I was in the race in 2018, and in a field of 5 Republican candidates, finished third, a very strong third. What prompted me to get back in the race this time, because after finishing third when there were only 2 open seats, that's called a loss. So I walked away and said I, as a good citizen patriot, offered myself to serve in this capacity, felt very well qualified to do so with my 42 years business background before retiring. I was actually approached after our Republican candidates, 7 of the 9 that were running to be in that primary and on the ballot, 7 of them were removed by the courts of Arizona for insufficient nominating petition signatures. And that in part was due to COVID, when you couldn't collect signatures for the last 30 days. So it made it very, very challenging. And only 2 survived. And this season in 2020, we've got 3 open seats on that 5-member board. And I was called by Commissioner Justin Olson, who won in the 2018 cycle, and asked if I would consider running as a write-in candidate. My wife and I prayerfully considered that possibility and got word that we should indeed pursue that God was going to be involved and open a few doors, and boy did he ever. So I'm very proud to speak to the primary race, where I was the write-in. I had to rise to 2 very prominent challenges, the first being collecting $5 from 1,800 Republicans or independents or walkaway Democrats, and I had some of all of the above, which was gratifying. And I achieved that in 8 weeks' time, which was remarkable in and of itself. An act of God, not Jim's, I assure you of that. That led to qualifying in part for the funding, the public funding that comes as a clean election candidate, which I ran in 2018 as a clean election candidate. Because this is certainly a job for the Corporation Commission that we don't want any commissioners that owe anybody a favor, whether it's a power company, a water company, or a labor union. We don't want anybody to be owed a favor. We need to be in there with maturity, wisdom, sound judgment, and these are things that in my career have been attributed to me for 4 decades plus. And that's why I felt very qualified to serve if elected into this position. The second biggest thing I had to do, which most professional political people judged as absolutely impossible, was to get 6,663 write-in votes. Now, when I was on the ballot in 2018, I was easy to find. I was printed on the ballot, and I got, as I say, just shy of 207,000 votes. This time, I wasn't on the ballot at all, so people had to be very, very proactive and write my name in. And the target was 6,663, as I mentioned. That was a big number. There were many professionals in the business that thought that was mission impossible. Thankfully, I was able to bring that very narrow, very precise message into Republican, Tea Party patriot groups, political activists, women Republican clubs all over the state of Arizona. They bought into the mission of getting that job done. So as I was married in the middle of this past summer and on my honeymoon during the primary election, because my work was done. I put the mission in the hands of the people who had to bring in the vote. And boy, did they ever. So on August 18th, 14 days after our August 4th primary, when the Secretary of State certified the canvass statewide, it was revealed that I had 45,544 write-in votes, just shy of 7 times the minimum required. And as I said, God was going to open a few doors, and boy, did he ever.
I know a lot of people thought that was impossible. I wasn't one of them, but I had to deal with some of those people that said, why would I write Jim in? And I said, why wouldn't you? They couldn't answer me.
Yeah.
So their choice was gone. That's the best way I've ever figured out of doing anything. We have some problems in Arizona that are unique to us because we have the Green New Deal wrapped up in the 3 Democrats. They call themselves the Solar Group or whatever, team or whatever it is. Both of us resided in California years ago. We're now watching California do brownouts and blackouts. When we lived there, they never did any of this kind of stuff. You actually had inexpensive utility bills. I remember getting a light bill for $6 and something a month. I mean, that's unheard of. Especially in Arizona, you're not going to get that kind of a bill. And as we also know that the sun doesn't always shine in Arizona on cloudy days. It rains. You have real monsoons. The wind doesn't always blow here. So that's not going to be very beneficial. And we've had some problems in this past year with one lady I know died when they shut her power off because she owed them, I think, $51 and some change. However, what concerns me is if we'd end up like California with their solar plan, what happens when we start having brownouts and blackouts to the seniors here that do pay their bills but still don't get power? How do you look at this as an elected official? What are you going to do to protect us from the same kind of energy program they put into California that you know is dangerous to people's health there and would definitely be dangerous to people's health here? Because living in California, I never experienced 115-degree heat.
Claire, regarding the solar team, as you pointed out, and their wrong-minded idea as the solution to Arizona's problems, that was the real motivator that got me to run. Not only did we need 3 Republicans on the ballot to balance the 3 Democrats in that challenge, but we needed someone who is as deeply concerned as I am still with the threat that the solar team presents. Our Arizona voters were smart enough to have defeated Prop 127 just 2 short years ago in that 2018 election. Resounding defeat 70-30 against Tom Steyer's, the solar billionaire from California, his $20 million backing to get that horrible policy introduced into our Arizona Corporation Commission and into our state. And what's happening right now that really motivated me to put myself out again in this space, in the race, was hearing the solar team's plan. It's basically a repackaging of a horrible idea that was bad then in 2018, and it's still bad today. But it's being brought to us in the form of the 3 Democrat candidates who are connected at the hip to each other, and they are all about the solar team. The solar team means a solar mandate where the commission would vote, if they're in there, would vote to absolutely require, under penalty of law, that all of the power companies meet these very unrealistic and very imprudent objectives of virtually 100% solar by the day after the election, and that's my hyperbole, but that's the point of it, to meet that requirement. And the voters, the power users, would be mandated to all go out and order rooftop solar tomorrow. So you can imagine what kind of a field day. I've got nothing against the rooftop solar industry. They're good people trying to make a good living, but this gives them a license to steal.
Yeah.
It would give them a license to steal. It would border on bankrupting the power companies. And we can see, as you mentioned in your question to me, looking over at our former home state, California, what a train wreck that is, where political ideology run amok, mandated solar, has one of the biggest utilities in their state, Pacific Gas and Electric, operating in bankruptcy. So counting on them for reliable and affordable, and talking about affordability, California power users pay 50% more right now than we do here in Arizona, on average statewide, state to state comparison, 50% more. So being a prudent and fairly disciplined, thoughtful person on behalf of everybody in the state of Arizona, the Democrats included, the lefties included, I don't want anybody getting ripped over on bad policy. And that's why I'm in this race.
All right. Basically what you're saying to all of us is the Democrats are willing to take away my free choice of how I get energy. It's kind of like saying I have to buy a certain kind of gas at the gas pump.
Precisely.
We don't care whether you only want to put regular in your car. You're going to drive a diesel. We're not going to make gasoline-powered cars anymore. Or we're all going to use ethanol from Iowa, where I was born, thankfully. But what they're actually going to do if they get away with this indirectly is take away our rights as American citizens, aren't they?
Indeed they are, and that's a direct consequence, a result of bad policy informed by ideology. They have so bought into the clean energy idea. I'll say this on record. The Corporation Commission, as you well know, also regulates the securities industry in the state. My background is 42 years as an SEC registered investment advisor, a principal in the National Association of Securities Dealers, broker-dealer, the most highly regulated industry in the country, to the best of my knowledge. Everyone in it that practices is licensed and recertified on regular basis, and audits every 3 years from the SEC and every 5 years from the NASD. It's a rigorous industry to be a participant in. And I got through that with the cleanest skirts in town, so to speak. Never, in every audit, never a bad word in the file from a customer or an employer or an employee or any other counterparty anywhere. So I personally feel very, very strongly that when we as the ACC find a bad actor who's committing financial fraud on Arizona retirees, of all parties, by the way, this is totally nonpartisan, retirees, the fire and police unions that have been ripped off routinely, the Baptist Foundation back in the year 2000, when I arrived here in Arizona 20 years ago, these really get my Irish up. And I will be the biggest cop with the biggest hammer coming down on bad actors. I'll push that analogy one step further. If the solar team's pitch were a financial scheme to raise money for something like this, as opposed to coming under the protections of the First Amendment, free speech, you can talk about anything you want, this Arizona Corporation Commission would be investigating the solar team for financial fraud, trying to scam this idea on Arizonans. So that's why I'm up and fired up.
Yeah, you sound like you are. A lot of people don't know this about me, but in my youth, I worked in the nuclear power industry. I worked for Southwestern Engineering, building heat transfer units for nuclear power plants, and for the oil type too. Now, we know that the coal-generated power plants are on their way out in Arizona. But these people also want to eliminate the nuclear power plants, which for me are one of the safest ways of generating power there is. Coming from that industry a long time ago, I know how they were built. I know the codes that were put into them and the regulations. I know how safe they actually are. And they don't want anything to do with these either, do they?
What I'm beginning to hear is they are so focused on clean, renewable, and a very tight definition on clean and renewable. It would not include gas-fired plants, which are essential for balancing the power flow to consumers in the state at fair and reasonable prices, where the power companies can be very flexible in when at night when there is no solar happening at all. Yeah. We've got other alternative sources of energy currently. So I'm more, I have no complaint with solar, don't get me wrong. That's from the heat of the sun, it's God-given, it's a wonderful thing, but it is not free. And the mechanisms to deliver that solar, they can be very inexpensive on a wholesale basis, but frightfully expensive for consumers on a installed rooftop. That doesn't mean rooftop isn't feasible. There are apparently, by my last look, about 140,000 homes here in the state, which I think is a fairly small percentage of overall homes, housing 7 million of us right now, but nonetheless a respectable number. And I'd like to see that continue with fairness and equity. However, I'm an all of the above candidate. I want us to keep our nuclear. I want us to keep our gas fired. I'm thankful at the coals for its pollution piece alone. The coal fired are coming to an end of an era, and I believe the last one is going to be closing in 2041, which is actually only 20 short years from now.
Yeah, that's about all it is. Well, in closing, Jim, what do you want to tell the voters right up front about yourself and your closing statement?
If you're interested in a candidate who's not looking for a political career, a candidate who is sincerely and well prepared to look out for your financial best interest every day, and to be looking at every rate case from your perspective, working to entertain new technologies, new ideas, new markets that will bring down overall costs and increase efficiency in the power companies and the water companies, working with the trade associations. I'm a big round table guy. I like all stakeholders weighing in. And I guess I go as far as to say my plan when elected is to listen to voters, listen to ratepayers. So I plan on monthly town hall meetings where I will participate, and hopefully with other commissioners, where beyond the formal hearings, we can actually hear from you, the anecdotal evidence of what's happening out in the field. Hear it directly. There are mechanisms to call the office and go through the switchboard and the complaint piece, but as commissioners, we need to get closer to you, the ratepayers, and what's not working, and get that information early and bring it into our decision making. I want to be a very objective judge, very unbiased in every case that I hear before voting on a rate increase, decrease. I want all the facts. Planning is important, planning is essential. But most of all, my immediate role is to protect us all from these bad ideas of turning Arizona into California with the rolling blackouts, with the 50% higher rates that they're currently paying right now. And as a friend of mine suggested the other day, how would you like to get your power turned off? When you do pay your bill, you'll get notice that from 3 to 8 tonight, you will not have power at your home.
I'd love that, wouldn't you?
That's a fright night. That's a fright night. And voters ought to be very, very concerned and not go off with the Pied Piper of clean, 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 renewable, renewable, renewable. And the favorite slogan of all is, their slogan is, Arizona is going to be or Phoenix will be the solar capital of the world. Who cares? Who cares?
Not me.
Not me.
Okay. Well, Jim, first of all, I want to thank you for giving us this time today. And secondly, and maybe more important for me, is ever since I've lived in Arizona, I've been fairly active here politically. Most people know that. And I got cornered back in 2010 and asked to endorse some people, which I did, because I trusted them enough to be able, by looking at their policies, to do something with them. I got bit really well by those 3 or 4 people, so I didn't do it anymore. This year I'm making an exception in about 3 or 4 different races. President Trump for one, for sure, Mr. Cook, and Mr. Sheridan. You are another one of those people that I know I can trust implicitly with endorsing you for this office. And I hope everybody that's voted for me, supported me when I ran against Jeff Flake in 2012, and some think it was a fool's errand. I don't think so, because we got a lot of people to understand what that man was really like.
We sure did.
Yeah, and for those people it worked, and others learned eventually. So I'm asking all of them to give you the support they've given me over the years, and I pray and hope that you're successful in this endeavor that will give us the future we need and that God, I believe, wants us to have. So thanks again for coming on, and God bless you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
Well, I want to thank everyone for listening in and viewing the videos of Jim and Jerry Sheridan as well. And I hope all of you now begin to understand how important this election is. And next week, here in Arizona, as has already happened around the country, people are voting. We get our early ballots next week. I urge most of you, if you can, go to an early polling place and bring them there or vote there. But vote. President Trump needs our help more than ever. Now him and the First Lady have been diagnosed positive with the coronavirus, or as we like to actually call it, the China virus. Jim O'Connor needs your vote statewide to become a Corporation Commission officer. Jerry Sheridan here in the county of Maricopa needs your vote to become our next county sheriff. These people are running for us to protect our constitutional God-granted rights. The least we can do is get out and vote for them and get others and encourage others to do the same thing. If they don't live in Arizona, you've got friends and relatives that live in other states, some of which I believe probably listen to your advice. Contact them and tell them, President Trump needs your help for the sake of our country. It's not for him. He doesn't need this job. Trust me, that man did not need to take this job. He took it to defend our rights, as these other gentlemen have done the same. So I beseech all of you, exercise your God-given right to vote, and exercise your right to free speech to tell others to vote. This is what makes our republic strong, that we stand up and speak when it's necessary. A lot of us are very quiet people, very peaceful people, and would never hurt a fly. However, it's time now to swat the bug that we're fighting. We're fighting socialist communism within the borders of these United States. Most of us never thought this would happen in our lifetime. It's here now. Khrushchev said he would bury us, and they had a plan to do it through our educational system. Well, guess what? You've got children that they've indoctrinated with their crap for the last 30, 40 years. And a lot of those children have brought these ideas home to their parents and grandparents to get support for it. And too many of them are afraid that if they don't go along with it, they won't see their children again. You know what? You gave birth to your child. Your child didn't give birth to you. So take your stand for your country. Your country. Without your country, you wouldn't have your family. You wouldn't have anything. I was blessed to be born in this country. I could have been born in Europe, as most of you could have as well. So stand up and take the battle on. Get your votes out. Get others to go vote as well. Please. Next week, you'll get your early ballot. Start dealing with it today. We have no time to waste. Our country and our freedom are at stake, not just for us, but for generations from now. So thank you once again for viewing the videos we've been making. We're going to have more in the future. Once again, this is Claire Van Steenwyk for Grants Crossroads. I hope you take my advice and heed the instructions of getting out the vote. It is pertinent for all of us. God bless you and thank you. Keep America free.